It was June when the letters came. Crisp white envelopes with blue embossed HOA seals that promised important updates and a refreshing future. Inside, a folded trifold brochure practically shouted in bold, "Exciting pool renovations. Coming soon, special assessment, $600 per household due July 1st. No prior vote, no warning, no breakdown of costs. Just a line at the bottom in smaller font. Pool reopening expected mid-July." That same day, Miriam stood barefoot in her driveway, holding the letter with one hand and her gardening shears in the other. Sweat ran down her temple in the late sea. Afternoon heat, and the smell of her freshly cut marigolds mixed with hot asphalt and chlorineless air. Her husband, Henry, leaned over the fence, shaking his head as he watched the mail carrier vanish down the hill. $600 for what? That pool's been the same since '94, he muttered. Did they even drain it last winter? Miriam grunted. They didn't even take down the Christmas wreath on the clubhouse until March. What do you think? They weren't alone. Over the next 24 hours, the HOA Facebook group lit up with furious residents. Dozens of comments under Wendy Lovell's post, Wendy being the board president and unofficial neighborhood monarch, insisted it was necessary for community safety. When pushed for a breakdown of costs, she responded only with a thumbs-up emoji. That didn't go over well. By July 10th, the heat was unbearable, and the pool gates remained padlocked. A yellow construction sign leaned half-collapsed against the entrance. No trucks, no work crew, no workers at all. The only change, a banner that had gone up weeks before. Coming soon, a safer, more beautiful pool. Someone, probably Greg from Lot 14, had scribbled "when" in permanent marker beneath it. Henry, ever the quiet type, began collecting photos of the untouched pool, the crumbling tile, the empty contractor lot. He kept a neat folder on his iPad. Meanwhile, Miriam had started knocking on doors. It was old school, the way she preferred. She had a charm people responded to, and an ear for details most neighbors didn't even know they'd said aloud. I heard Wendy's cousin owns the cleaning company that evaluated the site, a young mother whispered to her as they stood by a sandbox in the tiny community playground. That's what Deborah from the committee said off record. How interesting, Miriam smiled. On July 15th, a new HOA newsletter arrived. Delays due to permits. Thank you for your patience. Expected reopening, August 1st. No one believed it. That night at their kitchen table, Miriam slid a glass of sweet tea toward Henry and opened her planner. "I want to talk to Lisa on the board," she said. "The new one, the young one with the curly hair? She voted no last time and got shushed, did you see?" Henry nodded. "You think she'll talk?" Miriam smiled faintly. "I think she already wants to." And Lisa did talk, nervously, but enough to make Miriam's pen scratch furiously across a lined notepad. "There are no permits. None filed. The budget report's locked. Wendy told us the funds were already committed and she wouldn't be releasing itemized receipts until the next quarter." "Did anyone vote for that?" Miriam asked. Lisa hesitated. She said it was executive privilege and cited urgent fiduciary discretion. "I didn't even know that was a thing. I asked if I could see the invoices and she said if I pressed it, I could be removed." Miriam leaned back slowly, her hands folded in front of her. "Let me ask you something, Lisa. Do you have a printer at home?" Lisa blinked. "Yes?" "Then, let's print some questions." By the end of that weekend, stapled packets began appearing on porch steps, each read in bold across the top, "Where is your $600? Her pool renovation timeline that doesn't exist." Below it, timestamps, photos, email quotes from Lisa, anonymous but damning, a side-by-side of last year's budget versus this year's assessment projections, and a QR code linking to a Dropbox folder labeled "The Pool That Never Opened Evidence Archive." And under that, in the smallest, calmest font, "Board meeting Tuesday, let's ask together." Tuesday evening came dressed in sticky heat and neighborly silence. The HOA clubhouse, usually used for baby showers and bunco nights, looked different. Under the flickering parking lot lights, plastic chairs lined up in 2 neat rows. A folding table with a stack of untouched HOA newsletters. And in front of it, Wendy Lovell, board president, dressed in a lavender linen blazer and a frozen smile that looked vacuum-sealed for damage control. Miriam and Henry arrived early. Miriam wore a plain navy blouse and her gold cross necklace, subtle but firm. Henry carried a reusable grocery bag. Inside his iPad, 2 manila folders, a printout of their neighborhood's zoning map, and a thermos of decaf. By 6:58 p.m., every chair was filled. Some residents stood near the back wall. A few had their arms crossed. Most clutched the stapled packet that had mysteriously appeared on their porches. Lisa sat at the end of the board table, her hands folded tightly in her lap, eyes flicking nervously to the audience. Miriam gave her the smallest nod. Wendy tapped the microphone like a gavel. "We'll begin with community updates," she said, voice smooth, almost bored, followed by an open forum. A few mumbles. Someone coughed. Wendy launched into an agenda that had nothing to do with the pool. Reminders about lawn height, trash bin visibility, community garage sale planning. She was halfway through a note about a suspicious raccoon sighting when someone stood up. "Excuse me," said a voice near the back. "A man in a yellow polo. Greg from Lot 14. Is there a reason the pool still isn't open?" Wendy didn't look up from her paper. As noted in our last newsletter, delays in permits are their permits, Miriam said, standing. Heads turned. Wendy blinked once, smiled again. "Mrs. Adler, I'm happy to speak to you during the appropriate section of tonight's meeting." "I believe this is appropriate. You billed us each $600 for a renovation. The pool's untouched. No contractors, no permits filed with the city. Not even a drainage pump installed. So I've checked. Whispers spread like wildfire. Someone in the front row pulled out their phone and hit record." Lisa shifted. Wendy's smile thinned. "There are nuances you may not understand," Wendy said, louder now. "Emergency decisions made under the discretion of the board do not require individual approval." "That might be true," said Henry, standing now beside Miriam, holding up a laminated printout. "But what's not true is the budget line item that says funds were used for tile resurfacing. Because I've been by the pool twice a day since May. No tile has been touched." He walked forward and laid the photo, dated and time-stamped, on the table. Gasps followed. Someone clapped. Wendy raised her hands. "This is bordering on hostile and—" Lisa's voice cracked through like a sudden thunderclap. "Enough." Everyone went quiet. She stood slowly, eyes locked on Wendy. There were no votes, no open budgets, no signed invoices. The board was told not to ask questions. I was told to stay in line or I'd be removed. But if you all want to know where the money went—" She turned, reached into her own bag, and pulled out a binder, thicker than Miriam's packet. Tabbed, highlighted, and humming with fury. "These are screenshots of emails, bank payments, and a contractor quote for $32,000 paid to Clearwave Property Services, a company owned by Wendy's nephew. He's a barber, by the way. Never laid a tile in his life." Now it wasn't just gasps, it was outrage. Wendy stood, sputtering. "That's not admissible. You're breaching privacy laws." "I've already filed a formal grievance with the city and forwarded the documentation to the state HOA Regulatory Council. And," Lisa added, voice tightening with years of held-back shame, "to Channel 4 News." Wendy stormed out. 2 board members followed, looking shell-shocked. No one clapped. No one needed to. The silence was louder than any applause. Henry turned to Miriam. You think it's over? Miriam stared at the empty chair at the board table. Oh no, she said, folding her arms. It's just getting fun. From a burner account with no profile picture, no friends, no tags. Just the name Deepwater. The post read, Want to know where your $600 really went? Everything's in here, screenshots, transfers. Wendy's family tree, you're welcome. Dropbox link. The pool that never opened. Full report. By sunrise. The file had been downloaded over 200 times. By noon it had made it into inboxes, WhatsApp chats, and even the group text of the church volleyball team. Miriam sat at her kitchen island, zooming in on a payment record for $14,800 labeled Community Engagement Services. She read it 3 times before flipping to the spreadsheet Lisa had left her with. The same amount showed up twice, same date, 2 completely different descriptions. 1. Pool repair down payment. 2. Outdoor sound system rental. They double billed. She said aloud. But the money went to the same LLC. Henry looked up from his tablet. Isn't that the DJ who did the Lovell's anniversary party last spring? DJ Maxsuit, she said, lips tightening. He was wearing gold sneakers and played Pitbull at 4 p.m. Henry blinked. Tragic. Across the street, Greg from Lot 14 was live-streaming a walk around the pool perimeter. It had 118 viewers and climbing. He pointed out cracks in the cement, snapped a shot of the rust-stained gate lock, and waved his phone toward the untouched filter system, covered in cobwebs. Still no work trucks. Still no city permit signs. Still nothing except this joke of a banner. Behind him the same sign flapped in the breeze. Coming soon. A safer, more beautiful pool. Someone had crossed out beautiful and written budget scam. The Odessa HOA email system, however, was silent. Wendy hadn't responded since the meeting. The treasurer, Philip, had posted a one-line message stating he was looking into matters and that further updates will be provided after legal consultation. Then he locked the comments section. That night, Lisa sent Miriam a text. You should come see this. Lisa's condo was cluttered with open manila envelopes, crumpled receipts, and 3 red wine-stained notebooks. A spreadsheet blinked open on her laptop. I think she's been doing this for years, Lisa said. Not just the pool. Look, last year's sidewalk pressure washing fee, charged twice. Same vendor, same amount. And the year before, Miriam murmured, tracing down the line. Private snow removal. We didn't even get snow that year. Lisa nodded. Which means either she's inflating services or creating fake work altogether. And her nephew's company is the funnel. Exactly. Henry leaned in from the couch where he was holding up a printed map. And here's something else. The HOA property lines don't even include the drainage behind the pool. But she charged for flood mitigation there twice. We're paying for land we don't own. Lisa let out a low, shaky laugh. You know how she always says, we just want what's best for the community? Miriam raised an eyebrow. She's been stealing from it the whole time. By Sunday, Deepwater's Dropbox had been updated with a new folder. Phase 2, the Lovell Ledger. HOA payments by vendor, 5 years. HOA minutes with missing approvals. LLC lookup docs. Screenshots. Wendy's emails with nephew. Tax forms? Pending. The community buzz turned electric. Neighbors passed in the street with a nod and a smirk. Porch lights flickered like code, and every mailbox had quietly sprouted a copy of the board recall petition. At 6:47 p.m., just after dinner, Miriam got a call from a blocked number. She almost didn't answer. Hello? You don't know. Me, the voice said, breathy, anxious. But I used to work with Clearwave, the company Wendy used, and I think you should know. Silence. What? Miriam asked, heart thudding. They didn't just steal your fees, they used the HOA fund to back out of a private debt. She made the payments look like they were for pool work, but they went somewhere else. to cover someone else's loan. If the audit finds it, it's wire fraud. Miriam's mouth went dry. Who is this? But the line went dead. She stared at the silent phone for a long moment, then looked up at Henry. We're not just dealing with greed, she said slowly. We're dealing with something bigger. Henry set down his mug. Bigger than the pool? Miriam didn't smile. Much bigger. Monday morning brought a strange quiet to Oakridge Estates, the kind of quiet that settles in right before a thunderstorm, too still, too tense. The kind where neighbors kept their curtains open just enough to peek, but not enough to wave, because overnight someone had printed dozens of glossy flyers and taped them to nearly every community mailbox. Special assessment. Fraud? If you paid the $600 pool fee, your money may have helped settle a private loan. Contact the HOA Oversight Division, complaint reference 229045B. More details at thepoolscam.info. The link was real. The complaint number too, and by lunchtime, Wendy Lovell's once pristine minivan had been egged. Miriam didn't condone the egging. But she wasn't surprised. She'd spent the last 36 hours on the phone with the city's Housing and Development Office, digging through zoning records and past permit filings. She'd learned two things. No permits had been filed for pool renovation or tile work in the last 3 years. A prior violation had been issued to the HOA 2 years ago for improper drainage behind the clubhouse. It had never been resolved. The fine was quietly paid, by check, from the HOA emergency fund. It wasn't even legal to spend our dues on that, she muttered, flipping through the old violation record now saved as a PDF on her desktop. Henry looked up from across the kitchen. They paid off a 2-year-old fine using a brand new special assessment and passed it off as a pool upgrade. He whistled low. It's like they're playing Monopoly with real houses. Meanwhile, Lisa's inbox was being flooded. After her confrontation at the meeting, dozens of residents had begun sending her screenshots, emails, and even scanned letters from past years. Fee notices, suspicious billing patterns, duplicates. One woman sent a blurry photo of a plumbing maintenance fee from 2021, right next to a message that said, "No plumbing issues reported." Another email simply read, "I'll testify. I've been waiting for someone else to say something for years." Lisa had set up a spreadsheet. She now had 37 entries from residents showing evidence of double billing vague charges, sudden fees with no vote conflicts of interest. All led back to one common pattern. Wendy Lovell signed off on every single one. At 5:06 p.m., Miriam received another email, this time from a burner Gmail account. Subject: not just the pool, you're smart, but you're only seeing half. The retention pond behind the east cul-de-sac? There's no record it was ever inspected, or even owned by the HOA. Why are we paying for it? Signed, someone who knows PS. Wendy's husband is the one who mows it. Check the payments. Miriam's stomach dropped. She didn't even wait. She picked up the phone and called Lisa. Can you access payment records for the landscape maintenance contracts? I already am, Lisa said, breathless. I think we've just found the smoking lawnmower. That evening, Miriam and Henry drove to the east cul-de-sac. The so-called retention pond sat behind a rusted chain-link fence, half filled with reeds and mosquitoes. A wooden HOA sign near the fence read, "Drainage area the keep-out maintained by HOA grounds crew." But here's the thing. Oakridge Estates didn't have a grounds crew. They outsourced everything. They stood in silence for a moment, staring. At the forgotten strip of overgrowth, no record of ownership, Miriam said quietly. No city maintenance, but our money's going here. And Wendy's husband is getting paid to mow it? Henry asked. Miriam nodded slowly. Every month, like clockwork. Henry took a deep breath and said what she was thinking. This isn't just a scandal. It's a shell operation. Back home, the front porch light flicked on as they approached. A sealed white envelope sat at their doormat. No name, no return address. Just their house number scrawled in black pen. Miriam picked it up and opened it. Inside were 3 printed photographs. A screenshot of a bank transfer. $2,000 to Lovell Landscape Solutions. LLC. A photo of Wendy at a backyard BBQ. Glass of wine. In hand, toasting with the treasurer. Philip. A blurry nighttime photo of a file cabinet being wheeled out of the HOA office. Last night. She stared at the last image for a long time. "Henry," she said. "Yeah? Tomorrow morning, I think. We need to pay the HOA office a visit." Miriam and Henry arrived at the HOA office just after 9 a.m., right as the sky was beginning to sweat again. The sun already had a bite to it, but the parking lot was empty. No other cars, no board members, and notably, no Wendy. The office itself sat in the side wing of the community clubhouse, an unassuming door marked only with a laminated paper sign, Oakridge Estates HOA, authorized personnel. Only. Miriam knocked once. Then again. Silence. She looked at Henry. "They're not here." "Doesn't mean we can't look," he said, pulling a folded piece of paper from his back pocket. "Lisa emailed this to me. Technically, under HOA law, any homeowner has a right to request access to financial documents within a reasonable time frame. She even highlighted the bylaw." Miriam raised a brow. "And today is reasonable?" Henry gave a half-smile. "Very." The door wasn't locked. Inside, the office smelled like dust and artificial citrus. Someone had clearly spritzed air freshener, but the underlying mildew clung to the corners. A ceiling tile sagged above the entry, and one flickering fluorescent bulb buzzed above a battered desk with 3 drawers, a disconnected phone, and an unplugged shredder. But what caught Miriam's eye was the file cabinet, the same one from the photograph. Only now it stood empty, its drawers yawning open like a corpse left mid-autopsy. She stepped forward and pulled out each drawer fully. Nothing. No folders, no invoices, not even dust marks, as if it had never held a single sheet of paper. "They cleared it out," Henry said, "just like the photo showed." Miriam scanned the room. "Then they're hiding something." She opened the desk drawers, paper clips, an old HOA branded pen, and a sticky note that read, "Trash day isn't optional, WL." Typical Wendy. In the corner, a trash bin. She tipped it over carefully. Underneath crumpled flyers and a crinkled energy drink can, she found it. A torn coffee-stained paper labeled Agenda Finance Subcommittee, March. Only half the page survived, but it included a scribbled line item. Transfer to discretionary ops, 21K, Clearwave, verbal. Approval, WL. "Gotcha," she muttered. Henry held out a Ziploc bag from his pocket. "Told you we'd need one." That afternoon, Lisa met them at Miriam's house. She looked pale, hair in a bun, dark circles beneath her eyes. "I think someone's watching me," she said. Miriam stiffened. "What happened?" Lisa sat down at the kitchen island and pulled out her phone. She showed them a photo, a black SUV parked across from her driveway. It was there all morning. Engine running. Didn't belong to any of the neighbors, and last night someone rang my doorbell at 2 a.m., but didn't leave a package. Nothing showed up on camera. My doorbell app glitched right then. Henry rubbed his jaw. "You think it's them?" Lisa nodded. "Or someone they hired. I think Wendy's panicking. She knows the paper trail's unraveling." Miriam slid the torn agenda toward her. "And we're following it faster than she expected." Lisa studied the paper. "We can match the date to the bank logs. That's the week the pool prep charge hit everyone's accounts." "Only there was no prep," Miriam said. "Just a silent transfer." Lisa looked up. "Then this is embezzlement. Clear cut." The next day, things escalated. A motion was filed with the local housing authority. A formal petition to freeze Oakridge Estates' discretionary spending pending a third-party audit. It was backed by signatures from 82% of homeowners, well, beyond the required majority. It listed 3 names for potential fraud review: Wendy Lovell, President; Philip Granger, Treasurer; Michelle Lowry, Board Secretary, who had now vanished from all communication. Within hours, the news broke. Channel 4's website featured the headline, HOA under fire, 80K in pool fees missing, residents demand audit. Wendy's name was all over it. The article even included a cropped version of the flyer that had shown up around the neighborhood. The accompanying photo, the pool, still padlocked, still untouched. Banner sagging in. Defeat. But that night, something stranger happened. Miriam was closing her blinds when she noticed a flicker of movement across the street. Greg's house. His porch light blinked twice, then off again. A pattern. She waited. A figure moved from the side of his home, fast, hooded, and carrying something bulky. They slipped into the shadows and disappeared. Miriam called Greg immediately. He picked up on the second ring. "Did you see them too?" "Yes," she said. "What did they take?" He paused. "I had a flash drive taped under my porch light. It had backup video from my live streams, plus a copy of the HOA audit Lisa gave me. They're trying to erase everything." Miriam felt her spine go rigid. "Then we need to go public before they can bury it." "No," Greg said. "We go bigger than that." The next morning, a new video went live. Greg, Lisa, Miriam, all in frame, all calm, all holding up binders, timelines, and receipts. The title read, "For 3 days, the Lovell house stood untouched. Blinds down, porch light off, grass starting to yellow at the edges." A passive sort of defiance, like a stage set that no longer had actors. But Miriam noticed the smallest things, the way a side window had been cracked open, even during the rainstorm, the missing welcome sign that used to hang on the front. And on the morning of the 3rd day, she noticed something else, a U-Haul, not a full moving truck, just one of the smaller ones, discreetly pulled into the garage before sunrise. By the time the sun touched the pavement, the garage was closed and the street was quiet again. "She's bolting," Miriam said aloud, standing on her porch with her arms crossed. Henry stepped beside her, sipping his coffee. "She's at least thinking about it." Inside, Lisa sat cross-legged on her living room floor, surrounded by thumb drives, 2 laptops, and a growing wall of sticky notes with keywords like Clearwave, discretionary fund, non-permitted billing, and nephew shell. Corp. The recall petition had passed. Wendy Lovell had been officially removed as HOA president by emergency vote, effective immediately, but that didn't mean she was finished. Lisa clicked open a new tab and searched the business license registry for the 3rd time that week. Clearwave Property Services, still active, still listed under a shared P.O. box in a strip mall 45 minutes away. But now something new had popped up. Clearwave Landscaping and Design registered too. Michelle Lowry. Miriam's stomach turned when Lisa called to tell her. Michelle disappeared 2 weeks ago, and now she owns the company Wendy used to funnel money through. "It's like whack-a-mole," Lisa muttered. "You hit one, another pops up." At noon, Greg knocked on Miriam's door, face flushed with urgency. "You need to see this," he said, holding up his phone. On screen, a post from a private neighborhood group in the adjacent community of Maple Hollow Villas. Anyone else being charged a sudden amenity upgrade fee for the clubhouse water system? $750. No breakdown, no vote. Just a due date. Is this even legal? The replies were filled with confused, furious comments. Lisa joined the call over speaker. "Maple Hollow is one of Wendy's old communities," she said slowly. "She was on the board there 5 years ago before moving here, and now it's happening again." "No," Miriam said, pacing slowly. "She didn't run a scam." Lisa blinked. "What?" "She ran a system, a model, one she's repeated, probably across multiple HOAs. Install herself or someone close. Inflate a community improvement. Create a shell vendor. Disappear just before it collapses. They sat in stunned silence for a moment, and then Greg said, "We need someone bigger than the city." The next day, Miriam booked an appointment at the Regional Office of Property Oversight, 30 miles downtown. She took the binder, the one with Lisa's notes, Henry's photos, and the anonymous letters, and placed it on the desk of an exhausted but interested-looking investigator named Maya Joe. Maya flipped through it silently for 10 full minutes before speaking. "You realize," she said slowly, "this may be criminal, not just civil." Miriam nodded once. "We're not looking for vengeance, just the truth. The rest will come after." Maya smiled, but it was tight. "I'll escalate this. The financial task force meets Friday. If what you're saying is true, this could open a multi-community investigation, maybe even statewide." That night Miriam couldn't sleep, not because of the storm outside, but because of the silence across the street. The U-Haul had disappeared sometime during the afternoon. The porch light never came on, and the house just waited. HOA fraud. How they stole $80,000 and thought we'd stay quiet. Within hours, it passed 10,000 views. Then someone shared it on Reddit. By the next morning, the mayor's office had issued a statement. "We take community-level fraud seriously. Our office is working with state auditors and the housing division to investigate all allegations surrounding Oakridge Estates HOA." And still, no sign of Wendy. Her blinds stayed drawn. Her email bounced back. But Miriam had a feeling the storm wasn't over. It was only just breaking. At 2:13 a.m. she heard a knock, 3 short taps. Deliberate, she pulled on her robe and padded to the front door. When she opened it, no one was there. Just a yellow envelope wedged in the doorframe. Inside was a single flash drive, unlabeled, and a note in block letters. "If I go down, she goes first. Start with the birthday account." She turned to Henry, now standing behind her. "What the hell is the birthday account?" He took the note, squinting. "Let's find out." The next morning, Greg brought over his laptop. Lisa showed up with coffee, her eyes bloodshot but focused. Together they opened the drive. It contained one folder, titled Wendy, Personal Payments. Inside, dozens of PDF files, invoices, Zelle screenshots, handwritten notes, payment logs. One read, "Bounce house rental reimbursement. HOA approved? Ask Philip." Another, "Wendy's 60th. Reimburse champagne from discretionary." Then a Venmo log, 8:40. "Happy birthday. Thanks for letting me use the clubhouse." From Michelle Lowry to Wendy Lovelisa sat back in her chair. They used the community fund to pay each other for her birthday party. Greg rubbed his temples. That was the weekend. The pool pump failed and no one could swim. Miriam didn't speak for a long time. Then finally, "We're not just dealing with theft. We're dealing with entitlement disguised as leadership." By the following week, Oakridge Estates wasn't just whispering anymore. It was boiling. The neighborhood that once gossiped politely over shared hedges now brimmed with righteous fury. Porch lights stayed on longer. Group chats throbbed with screenshots. Even teenagers who once ignored HOA matters were offering to fly drones over properties, volunteering footage like it was a video game side quest. Miriam had become the quiet center of it all. She never raised her voice, never boasted. But when she walked down Sycamore Court with her binder and pen, people listened. They opened their doors. They handed over things they'd previously shrugged off, receipts, notices, scribbled threats from board members past. Because Wendy's grip had finally cracked, and no one wanted to be caught holding her rope. The flash drive from the envelope had turned out to be just the beginning. 2 days later, another package arrived at Lisa's doorstep. This one was more formal. A padded envelope stamped confidential with a sticky note. "You didn't get this from me. She kept the real books at her cousin's lake house. Inside was a ledger, a real one. Leather-bound, cracked, at the spine, and covered in sticky notes, many marked in pink highlighter or scrawled in slanted, rushed cursive. The front page read, Oakridge Financial Activity, 2020-2024, private use only. Lisa and Miriam spent 4 hours going through it. It was more damning than anything they'd found online. Handwritten notations, nicknames, transfer references, and coded initials. ML, Pool Scout payment for inspection not performed, $500 gift instead. CW birthday catering, write-off as committee appreciation. PG owes $2K, settle through extra grounds billing. And at the bottom of one page, total discretionary swept from assessments, $83,900. Lisa looked up, face pale. She wasn't running an HOA, she was running a personal bank. Miriam tapped the last number gently with her finger. 83,000? Gone. And that doesn't even count what she funneled out before 2020. She'll deny the handwriting. Then we'll match it, Miriam said, standing. I've still got the thank you card she sent after the yard competition. In 2019, same ink, same loopy L. Across town, Maya Jo, the investigator from the Office of Property Oversight, sat in her windowless office reviewing every document Miriam had brought. The birthday Venmo logs, the pool permit gap, the ledger scans, the anonymous emails. She had 3 manila folders now labeled Wendy Lovell Philip Granger Michelle Lowry Uncas Clearwave and a growing fourth other communities, because as it turned out, Wendy's scam didn't stop at Oakridge. Maya had already received quiet inquiries from 2 other HOAs, similar complaints, similar names, a repeating pattern, but it was the ledger that made her pick up the phone and call the district attorney's office. Financial abuse of a fiduciary role, she said. Multiple communities, shell companies, potential wire fraud and tax evasion. She wasn't just cutting corners. She was building herself a golden road out of other people's dues. Meanwhile, Miriam and Lisa called an emergency community meeting, held not in the clubhouse, still locked pending inspection, but in Greg's oversized garage. Someone brought folding chairs. A neighbor donated water bottles. A teenager ran a live stream from a laptop on a lawn chair. Nearly 60 people packed in. Not a single board member showed up. Lisa stood before them, the ledger in her hand. I won't read every line, she said. But you deserve to know where your money went. Murmurs of anticipation. She threw herself birthday parties. She sent money to her nephew for inspections that never happened. She double-billed landscaping fees. And she even tried to reimburse champagne under the label team-building beverages. Laughter rippled, bitter and electric. She wasn't running our HOA, Lisa said softly. She was robbing it. And now she's trying to disappear before the consequences catch up. Then Miriam stepped forward, holding up a folder labeled Next Steps. I know you're angry, she said. So are we. But if we're going to rebuild this neighborhood and protect ourselves, we need structure, we need accountability, and most of all, we need memory. She passed out copies of a proposal. Oakridge Estates Residents Committee for Oversight and Ethics, an independent body for financial transparency and policy review. They were met with applause, not wild, not theatrical, but long and steady. The sound of people reclaiming something, but even as the community galvanized, Wendy was still out there. Greg's drone footage showed her backyard empty, her windows dark. Someone had left food delivery bags on the porch for 2 days straight, untouched, and then that evening the for sale sign went up. Not a fancy listing, not a realtor's polished gloss, just a simple white post. And beneath it, in red block letters, by owner, cash offers only. "She's trying to run," Lisa said. "Let her," Miriam replied. "Let her go wherever she wants." "Why?" Miriam smiled. "Because she thinks the real danger's behind her." She turned to the folder of documents now on its way to Maya's office. But it's not. 3 weeks later, the pool finally opened. The banner was gone, the locks replaced. The grime scrubbed off by a pair of honest contractors, hired by the new interim board. Neighbors, not insiders. Henry helped them test the filter. Lisa handed out lemonade. And Miriam stood at the gate, watching as a group of children dove into the water that had sat stagnant for over a year. There was no ribbon-cutting ceremony, no speeches, just a quiet sense of earned restoration and justice, finally gaining depth. The case against Wendy Lovell had moved swiftly, faster than anyone expected, fueled by media coverage, a paper trail too precise to ignore, and an overwhelming volume of whistleblower testimony. The flash drives, the birthday Venmo, the ledger, the receipts, the fake invoices tied to Clearwave, the overlap of board roles and private benefit. The pattern stretched across 4 HOAs, each with their own special assessments, each with matching billing structures, shell vendors, and silent withdrawals. Under pressure, Philip Granger turned state's witness, admitting to signing off on padded contracts and gift reimbursements in exchange for cash kickbacks and favors. His testimony sealed the wire fraud charges. Michelle Lowry fled the state, but not before digital records pinned her as co-owner of 3 companies used to funnel HOA funds, including the one listed under Wendy's daughter's name. Wendy herself was arrested at a private airstrip in another county, U-Haul packed, bank account frozen, and still clinging to a clipboard of forged repair estimates. At her arraignment, she wore pearls in denial. But the evidence didn't blink. Miriam didn't attend the trial. She didn't need to. She watched from her porch that morning as a truck hauled the last of Wendy's furniture down Sycamore Court. No one waved goodbye. No one even watched for long, because Wendy had become a shadow, a lesson. A cautionary tale whispered by hedges and driveways, forever woven into the HOA minutes, permanently blacklisted from every board in the county. But Oakridge Estates, it bloomed. The new HOA president was elected unanimously, Lisa. She insisted on open budgeting, resident audits, and no more executive privileges. Greg became her VP and drone specialist. Henry helped digitize old records. And Miriam became the unofficial archivist of Oakridge. Not just of wrongdoing, but of how a community healed. She never raised her voice, never gloated, but every year when the pool reopened in June, she brought out a pitcher of sweet tea and sat under the shade of the gazebo, her notebook in hand, watching the water ripple in the sunlight. One hot July evening, a young couple approached her. "We just moved into Lot 23, the woman said. "I heard something happened here a few years ago?" Miriam smiled softly. "Yes, something did." "Were you part of it?" "I suppose." "You could say that." The woman hesitated. "Is it safe now?" Miriam looked past them to the pool, the clean sidewalks, the smiling neighbors, the notice board pinned with real minutes, not lies. She nodded. "It's safe now."